What's going on, everybody? It's Charles. In this video, we are going to attempt to salvage the DSG in our Audi S4. So when I picked up this car, it had a bad transmission. It wasn't even drivable. I installed the wiring harness for the mechatronics unit, and I don't really think it made much of a difference. Paul and I swapped over the clutch pack so we could do our drag race against gears and gasoline. And we had some success. On that first rallycross we took the car to, the car started to really hesitate, and it almost felt like the beginning stages of what was happening to the transmission and to the car when I first got it. So before taking that deep plunge into a manual transmission swap, I wanted to see if we could actually fix the DSG in the car. We had that spare transmission that I got to swap clutch packs, so what my plan today is to swap over the solenoids in the mechatronics unit and kind of hope for the best. Now I'll tell you, I don't know if this is gonna work, if it's not gonna work, if it's even gonna matter. This is probably in no way, shape, or form a by the repair manual type repair. This is something most shops probably aren't gonna do either because there's so many unknowns. So kind of throwing a Hail Mary here. It might work, it might not. And big thanks to Advanced Auto Parts for supporting this entire harebrained S4 project that we got going on. Also, this is the first time I've shown you guys the wrap that we had done on the car, so I gotta know. What do you think? Personally, I absolutely love it. It seems to match the ridiculous spoiler that we put on the car. Okay, so first up, we are going to take off this support bracket right here, which is a handful of bolts, and get that out of the way so we can drain our fluid. Also, look at how dirty this still is from our rallycross. I probably should have cleaned that. Now let's get some fluid drained, and I'm gonna try and capture some of this fluid. I have new fluid, but I wanna make sure that I have enough. I'm a little uneasy that I don't have enough, so we're gonna try and not make an enormous mess and capture fluid. What are the odds that I can do both? All right, let's see how big of a mess this makes. That's better. Slow, fast, slow. I think that's probably enough fluid. Yeah, so this is almost full. Do these pan bolts out? Nah, do a real careful job here. I'll try and be mindful of making a mess. If this fluid were warm, it would drain faster. Now I think we can get our pan out of here. Lower this down. Oh, I made a little bit of a mess. That's not too bad. Feeling all right about that. That's caught a pretty good amount of stuff. All right. Okay, let's get this filter down next. We'll probably lose a pretty good amount of fluid. Ooh, yeah. So if you were doing like a proper service and you went this far, you'd probably want to put a new filter on. But we're not doing a proper service. Have on repeat in your mind as you watch this. This is an attempt to salvage. I'm gonna take off this little housing on the side here. This is where if this transmission had a filter, it would be located, but this one doesn't have a filter, so it is, well, obviously not located there. Now, if you wanna see a little more in depth, or when Paul and I swapped those clutches out, we'll link that for you, because we found initially this transmission had some burnt clutches. Man, were they burnt. All right, another bit of fluid, maybe not. Oh yeah, a little bit. Oof! Just a little fluid everywhere, not too bad. All right, ready? Slow her down. You're hung on that connector, that's good. Okay, now we gotta do basically that same job on our other transmission on the bench. Now the main reason we're not just like swapping the whole mech unit or the whole transmission is that this one is actually from a newer Audi S4. And it probably has slightly different electronics in it, but the main reason is the mechatronics unit, or the brain of the transmission, is component protected. That means you have to dial up the mothership in order to program it. And officially, that doesn't work. Unofficially, well, it might work, but you really need the factory scan tool in order to do that. There's been a lot of back and forth on this will definitely work, this definitely won't work, but I think swapping solenoids is probably the thing that's gonna set us up for the best chance of success. There is our other mech unit. Filter out, unplug. Oof. Our housing up here and our connector housing is already out of the way, so we really just need to take our 6 mechatronic unit bolts out. Then I'm not sure how awkward this is going to be taking it out while the transmission's on its side. Broken loose. I'm going to leave one in just in case. Then I think after we swap these solenoids, we might take this apart, see what it looks like on the inside. Here we go. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay, so we have our 2 mechatronics units right here. This is the one that was in the car. This is the one that was in the transmission that we just pulled out. First things first, we need to get our harnesses out of the way, which I don't remember how they unplug. Here we go. Now you remember I swapped this harness in the car when I very first got it. That was like the first thing I did to it. Of course, after tuning it and dual pulleys, we're gonna keep that new harness that I put in, but we're gonna get all of our solenoids swapped. I'm gonna do them one at a time. That way, you know, they actually look like they're all probably the same solenoid, at least down this side, but I feel better about just doing one at a time. This plastic bit here that's bolted on is actually the harness. All right, now let's see what happens. We're gonna take the old one off first, and I think we're just gonna do these babies one at a time. We'll also, looks like, probably check these screens, make sure that they're not all goobered up. Now we're gonna take this guy off, probably lose a little fluid. Oh yeah, she juiced. We'll just carry it right over to this side. Then I don't have a torque spec for this, so I guess it's probably about 10 Newton meters. Maybe not quite. Don't quote me on that torque spec because, well, like I just said, I don't have the torque spec. And the reason I'm putting this back on instead of just like saying screw it and not is that there may be a time where we want to plug this mechatronics unit in and see if we can program it to the car. That time may never come, but it also might. Let's go ahead and turn this around and get the other solenoids on, well, I guess it's the bottom. Now I'm looking at it backwards, so I have to remember that this is the one that's gonna end up going back in the car. Okay, so this looks pretty straightforward as well. These solenoids look pretty much the same. Just like for the other ones, I'm just gonna do one at a time. These are different. You notice the one I swapped over has a black top on it, and the other one has a white top. I don't know if that matters or makes a difference, but it's different. Okay, there we go. All of our solenoids are in. Let's get our wiring harness put back on. Now I'm just thinking what might have also been another solution is to take like the brain box from transmission in the car and just swap these two. I assume, that's a big assumption, that probably would have been okay. Before we go back in with our mech unit, we have to adjust our shift yokes on the unit here and the forks on the transmission. For this, we need to grab our dial indicator, which is not what this is called, our caliper, and what we're measuring is we're measuring from the end here up to the body of the mech unit. For ours, it's 28 millimeters, and what I actually like to do is push this all the way in and then pull it all the way back out. But if you do that, you're probably gonna juice a bunch of fluid out of the backside. So grab a rag and hold it over, and then you can juice it right out. Make some pretty cool noises. Eli likes it. And then we're gonna pull this out to our 28 millimeter specification. And we also wanna make sure that this piece is vertical because this is gonna hook in and latch with the shift fork inside the transmission. We're gonna do all 4 of these. Double check. Okay, this is ready now. Now we need to make sure our shift forks are in their neutral position. And according to the repair manual, what you want to do is you want to push them in, pull them out, and then lock it in neutral. This is a place that I actually found was kind of challenging when I first did the mech unit. So we're gonna see how it goes. So each of these 4 have 3 positions: an out engaged, an in engaged, and then like a neutral position. So we need to go out, in, and then finally set it in its neutral position. So out, in, and then neutral. And then when we put our mechatronics unit up, the little hook on the yoke is gonna go right into that hole there. I think we're about as ready to go back in with this old girl as we possibly can be, so that when I use my muscly arms, I can kind of get it dialed in. Yeah, we need to go this way. Okay. Yeah, nice and gentle. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Ooh, that was satisfying. A satisfying clunk. Now, if I don't drop this screw, it'll be a miracle. Now we can go ahead and get the rest of our bolts in and tighten down. Now for the filter, I'm actually gonna put the filter from the other transmission in. I did some looking and man, it looks like the one that came out of this transmission was very unhappy. So we're gonna use the newer one. All right, then of course we'll do something that we better do, plug it in. Now we can go ahead and put our pan on, clunk. And then from here, it's really just putting parts back on up until we get to the point where we need to fill it with fluid. Also, if for some miracle this actually works, we'll probably come back and replace the pan gasket because this thing's been on and off a bunch of times and never replaced. Okay, next up we got to fill our transmission and set the fluid level right. The way this is done is pretty much the exact same way most every Volkswagen transmission and Audi transmission and probably others are set. With the car off, we put as much fluid in it as it will take. We start the car up, and the way I do it is I pump fluid in until it starts to slightly drip out, and then you should get a very small trickle of fluid coming out of the fill hole at 35 degrees Celsius. There are, of course, other ways to do it, but that's how I like to do it, and I found that works pretty darn well for me. Now that we have the fluid level properly set, we need to get the car on the ground, and all we really have left to do is take it for a test drive. I might come back and end up maybe trying to run basic settings, but let's see how it drives first. Okay, here we are, moments of truth. Also, it's freezing, so let's put the windows up. Yeah, it's better. It's definitely better. I think the true test will be, what does it do when we get out on the actual road and give it the bean, as they say. I think just one bean though. All right, here we go. Okay, definitely better. Also, this car sounds so cool. Definitely when it comes to a stop, it's not happy. Okay, so if for some miracle reason this ends up actually getting fixed, do we still manual swap it? Or do we DSG and just rock the DSG until it blows up? Eli says manual swap it. I don't know. True. I gotta say, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. It performed better than I really thought. I thought for sure I'd get in it, drive it, and it would just fall all over itself like it did at the rallycross course, but it actually did okay. Now, my gut says it's not 100% right. And that is just kind of what it is. So my question for you guys, now that we're better, and I think we could still rallycross this thing as is and have a ton of fun, but now that like the transmission's kind of okay, do we still manual swap it or do we just rock it as is? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. With that, I'm out. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you again next time. And I'll give you a little rev as I sign off.